You're fired. Consider it my gift to you. The text message burned into my vision as I stood frozen in my wedding dress bouquet, still clutched in my hands. Just moments ago, I had said I do to the love of my life. Now I stood in the quiet corridor just outside the chapel, surrounded by soft floral arrangements and distant laughter from guests celebrating what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. The message was from Vernon Cade, my boss's son. The same man who had made my work life miserable for the past 3 months. And he had chosen this day, my wedding day, to fire me. My fingers trembled as I showed the message to my husband, Adrian. I expected anger, outrage, something. Instead, a calm, almost knowing smile spread across his face. He took my hands, steadying them, and pressed a gentle kiss against my knuckles. "Check your messages later," he said softly. "Today belongs to us." I stared at him, confused. How could he be so calm? I had just lost my job, my position as senior project manager at one of the most respected design firms in the city. The career I had spent years building, erased in a single sentence, but something in his eyes made me pause. So I trusted him. I silenced my phone, handed it to my maid of honor, and walked back into the celebration, back into the music, the laughter, the illusion that everything was still perfect. 3 hours later, during our first dance, my maid of honor rushed toward me, her face pale. "Bella, your phone won't stop ringing. You have over 100 missed calls." And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just a firing. It was the beginning of something much bigger. Before we continue, take a moment to subscribe, but only if this story truly resonates with you. When you do that, you're not just supporting the channel, you're helping build a positive community where meaningful stories and life lessons are shared. I'd also love to know where you're listening from and what time it is there right now. This is a fictional story inspired by real workplace experiences and situations, with some elements enhanced through AI to make the narrative more vivid and engaging. I hope it leaves a lasting impression and gives you a truly memorable experience. The music continued soft and romantic, but my mind had already drifted far from the dance floor. I stepped away as gracefully as I could, murmuring an excuse, and made my way back to the bridal suite. My heart was pounding now, not from panic, but from something sharper. Anticipation. I closed the door behind me and finally turned my phone back on. The screen lit up instantly. Notifications flooded in faster than I could process them. Missed calls, messages, emails, dozens, then hundreds. Most were from the office, coworkers, department heads, even people I barely spoke to. And then I saw it. 17 missed calls from one number. Marcus Cade, the owner of the company, Vernon's father. A strange chill ran through me as I pressed play on the first voicemail. "Bella, this is Marcus. Call me immediately. Vernon had no authority to terminate you. There's been a serious mistake." I frowned, gripping the edge of the vanity. The next message came seconds later. "Bella, we need you back. The Harbor Point project submission is due Monday and no one can access your system." Another, and another, each message more urgent than the last. By the 6th voicemail, the confidence in his voice had cracked completely. "Bella, please. The entire team is stuck. We can't locate the updated plans. The credentials Vernon tried aren't working. We're at a standstill." I slowly lowered the phone, my reflection staring back at me in the mirror. For 2 years, I had built that system from the ground up. Every workflow, every safeguard, every hidden layer designed to keep projects running smoothly. I had offered to train the team. Vernon had canceled every session. And now, no one knew how to use it. A quiet realization settled over me, steady and undeniable. For the first time since that message, I wasn't the one who had lost something. I was the one holding all the power. And somehow on the very day I thought everything had been taken from me, I had never been in a stronger position. I sat down slowly, letting the weight of the moment settle in. For 2 years, I had poured myself into that company, not just doing my job, but rebuilding how everything worked behind the scenes. I created a project management system so detailed, It tracked every revision, every client request, every permit, every budget shift in real time. To me, it was second nature. To everyone else, it was a maze. I had tried to change that. I scheduled training sessions, wrote documentation, offered walkthroughs. Vernon canceled all of them. Unnecessary costs, he had called it. Now the consequences were unfolding exactly as I had warned. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, my wedding dress spilling around me, like a quiet reminder of where I was supposed to be emotionally. But instead of heartbreak, I felt something unexpected. Clarity. A soft knock broke my thoughts. Adrian stepped inside, closing the door gently behind him. His eyes searched mine, calm but attentive. "That sounded serious," he said. I handed him the phone without speaking. He listened to a few of the voicemails, his expression unreadable. When he looked up again, there was no surprise in his face. "Do you understand what this means?" he asked. I nodded slowly. "They can't function without me." He gave a small, knowing smile. "Exactly." There was a pause, then he added, "And there's something else you should know." My attention sharpened. "The plans Vernon has been submitting to the city. They're not clean," Adrian said carefully. "He's been making changes after approval, cutting safety elements, swapping materials." A chill ran through me. "That's not just unethical," I whispered. "That's dangerous." "I've been documenting everything," he replied. "I was planning to report it." I stared at him, realization unfolding piece by piece. This wasn't just about losing a job. This was something far bigger. And for the first time, the situation wasn't happening to me. It was waiting for me to decide what happened next. Adrian reached for my hand, grounding me in the middle of everything that was shifting so quickly. "What do you want to do?" he asked. The question lingered between us, heavier than anything that had happened so far. Just hours ago, my biggest concern had been centerpieces and seating arrangements. Now I was holding information that could unravel an entire company. I exhaled slowly. "Nothing," I said at last. He raised an eyebrow, slightly waiting. "Not today," I clarified. "Today is ours." A small smile touched his lips, one that carried both approval and understanding. "Good," he said, "because we still have a reception to finish." And so I did something that would have been impossible for me, even that morning. I let it go. At least for now. We returned to the celebration, and I allowed myself to be present in a way I hadn't been in months. I laughed with friends, danced without checking my phone, and let the noise of the world fade into the background. But beneath it all, something had changed. By the time the night ended, my phone still tucked away had accumulated over 200 missed calls. I didn't check them. Not that night, not the next morning either. Instead, Adrian and I boarded our flight for our honeymoon as planned. A quiet escape to the coast, far from the chaos I knew was unfolding back home. The messages kept coming. Voicemails stacked on top of voicemails, at first urgent, then desperate. By the third day, while we sat under a stretch of endless blue sky, Adrian handed me a coconut drink and glanced at my phone. "You're not even curious?" he asked gently. I was. Of course I was. But curiosity wasn't enough anymore, because deep down, I already knew what they wanted. And for the first time in my career, I wasn't in a hurry to give it to them. The ocean stretched endlessly in front of us, calm and indifferent to the storm unfolding back home. By the fourth day of our honeymoon, I finally turned my phone back on. It didn't ring. It exploded. Messages poured in faster than I could read them. Emails marked urgent. Missed calls well past 300. Names I recognized, names I didn't. And at the top of it all, a new voicemail. Marcus Cade. I hesitated for a moment before pressing play. "Bella, we're prepared to offer you triple your salary. Just come back. We need you to stabilize the Harbor Point submission." I listened to it twice. Triple my salary. Once that would have meant everything to me. Validation, recognition, security. Now it felt empty. I locked my phone and set it down beside me. Adrian watched quietly, studying my reaction. "That didn't move you," he said. I shook my head. "It's not about money." He nodded, as if he had expected that answer all along. Good, he said. Because I've been thinking. I turned toward him, curious. There's an opening in the city planning department, he continued. They're looking for someone who understands both sides, design firms and regulatory systems. Someone who can fix the gaps. The idea hit me instantly, not as a possibility, as clarity. You're suggesting I don't go back, I said slowly. I'm suggesting you build something better, he replied. The words settled deep. For years I had worked inside a system that undervalued me, tolerated shortcuts, and rewarded the wrong people. Now I had the chance to step outside of it, to redesign it. By the time our plane landed back home, I had already started outlining a plan. 3 days later, Precision Protocol Consulting was officially registered, and for the first time, I wasn't waiting for an opportunity. I had created one. If you agree with my decision to walk away from that offer and build something of my own instead of going back, let me know. Drop a 1 in the comments if you would have chosen the same path. The paperwork was barely finalized when my phone rang again. Marcus Cade. This time I answered. Bella, his voice came through immediately filled with relief. Thank God. We're in crisis. The Harbor Point project is collapsing. Clients are pulling out. We need you back. Name your price. I leaned back in my chair, glancing at the freshly printed certificate on my desk. I'm sorry to hear that, I said calmly. But I'm no longer available for employment. There was a brief silence on the other end. Then we'll hire your firm, he said quickly. Whatever you're charging, we'll pay it. I let the silence stretch just long enough. My first client is the city planning department, I replied. I'm working on new verification protocols for project submissions. The shift in his breathing was immediate. He understood. If I was designing the system that would review and approve projects, then everything Vernon had altered, every shortcut, every dangerous change would come to light. Bella, please, Marcus said, his tone softening. Vernon made a mistake. He was jealous. Of your work, your influence. Let me fix this. Some things don't get fixed, I thought. They get exposed. Some decisions carry consequences, I said evenly. And some bridges once burned don't get rebuilt. I ended the call before he could respond. Adrian was leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, having heard enough to understand. Feels different this time, doesn't it? He asked. I nodded. It does. Not because I had power over them, but because I finally had control over myself. The following week, I began my contract with the city. With insider knowledge of how firms actually operated, I quickly identified weaknesses in the approval system. Gaps that allowed people like Vernon to manipulate designs after they'd been signed off. I started closing those gaps, one protocol at a time, and I knew exactly where to look first. The audit began quietly. No announcements, no warnings. Just a systematic review of recent submissions under the new verification protocols I had designed. And exactly as expected, the discrepancies surfaced almost immediately. Files that didn't match their approved versions. Structural elements subtly altered. Safety margins reduced just enough to cut costs, but not enough to be obvious unless you knew where to look. I knew where to look. Most of the violations traced back to one source. Vernon Cade. The investigation moved quickly after that. The city couldn't afford hesitation when public safety was involved. Independent engineers were brought in. Every revision was cross-checked, every signature verified. Within days, the Harbor Point project was halted indefinitely. Within weeks, it was reassigned to another firm. Caldwell and Cade lost the contract entirely. The fallout didn't stop there. Vernon wasn't just removed from his position, his professional license was placed under review, and his name began circulating in industry circles for all the wrong reasons. Doors that once opened easily for him started closing just as fast. The company itself suffered a deeper blow. Years of reputation built carefully over decades began to unravel in a matter of weeks. Clients pulled out. Partnerships dissolved. Trust once broken proved impossible to recover overnight. I heard through former colleagues that Marcus had been hospitalized briefly from the stress. That part didn't bring me satisfaction, Because despite everything he had once been, the person who saw my potential when no one else did. But leadership comes with responsibility, and overlooking the wrong things can cost more than just money. Back at my own office, things were moving in the opposite direction. Precision Protocol Consulting was growing faster than I had anticipated. New contracts, new clients, a team that believed in doing things the right way. For the first time, I wasn't fixing someone else's system. I was building my own. And it was stronger than anything I had left behind. 6 months passed faster than I expected. What started as a single contract had grown into something far bigger. Precision Protocol Consulting now worked with multiple municipal departments, and I had hired a small but highly capable team to keep up with demand. Every system we built, every protocol we implemented, carried one principle at its core: transparency over shortcuts. Adrian had also been promoted, recognized for his role in identifying irregularities early on. Our lives, once shaped by uncertainty, had settled into something steady and intentional. We even bought a small house just outside the city, nothing extravagant, but full of potential. Exactly 1 year after my wedding day, a thick cream envelope arrived on my desk. No return address. But I already knew who it was from. Marcus Cade. I opened it slowly, unfolding a handwritten letter. He didn't try to justify what had happened. There were no excuses, no attempts to rewrite the past. Instead, he acknowledged it clearly and directly. The failures, the consequences, his own responsibility in allowing things to spiral. He wrote about rebuilding the company from the ground up, new leadership structures, independent oversight, mandatory compliance systems, and Vernon. According to the letter, Vernon was no longer in management. He had been placed in a junior role under strict supervision, required to complete professional ethics training and relearn the fundamentals he had once ignored. At the end of the letter, there was a request, not for me to return, but to meet, to review what they had rebuilt, to ensure it would never happen again. I read the letter twice, then set it down, staring out the window. Adrian found me like that a few minutes later. "What is it?" he asked. I handed him the letter. He read it carefully, then looked up. "What do you want to do?" I didn't answer right away. Because for the first time since everything happened, this decision wasn't about them. It was about me. I scheduled the meeting for the following week. Even as I confirmed the time, a part of me hesitated. Walking back into that building felt like reopening a chapter I had already closed. But curiosity and something deeper pushed me forward. When I arrived, the first thing I noticed was how different everything felt. New faces at the front desk, a quieter, more structured atmosphere, screens displaying updated workflows and compliance checkpoints. It wasn't just cosmetic. They had changed something fundamental. "Ms. Ross, Mr. Cade is expecting you," the receptionist said politely. I nodded and made my way down the hallway, each step steady, deliberate. The conference room door was already open. Marcus stood as I entered, his expression more worn than I remembered. The confidence was still there, but it had been tempered by something else. Experience. Consequence. And beside him sat Vernon. He didn't stand. He didn't even meet my eyes at first. I took a seat across from them, placing my bag neatly on the table. "This is unexpected," I said calmly. Marcus gave a small nod. "This past year has been educational." There was a pause before he glanced at his son. "Vernon has something he wants to say." Vernon finally looked up. The arrogance I remembered was gone. In its place was something quieter, uncertain but real. "I owe you an apology," he said, his voice low. "What I did was unprofessional, personal, and dangerous. There's no excuse for it." I studied him for a moment. The words sounded practiced, but the discomfort in his posture didn't. "Apology noted," I replied evenly. Marcus slid a folder across the table toward me. "We've rebuilt everything. New systems, new oversight, new processes. We're not asking you to come back, only to evaluate what we've done." I opened the folder, scanning through the documents. Detailed, structured, different. Then Vernon reached into his bag and placed a small envelope and a USB drive on the table in front of me. "This belongs to you," he said quietly. And in that moment, I realized this meeting wasn't about the past anymore. It was about what came next. I glanced down at the envelope, then at the small USB drive resting beside it. "Go ahead," Marcus said gently. I opened the envelope first. Inside was a check, not a random number, not a rounded figure. It was exact down to the last detail. The full cost of my wedding. I looked up, my expression sharpening. "How did you get this number?" Marcus cleared his throat. "Your wedding planner." "We reached out. We wanted it to be precise." Before I could respond, Vernon spoke again, more steadily this time. "You said it was a gift," he said, his voice tight. "What I did that day. This is what it should have been." For a brief second, something flickered inside me. Anger, not loud, not explosive, but deep and controlled. Did they really think this could balance anything? Then I turned my attention to the USB drive. "And this?" I asked. Vernon swallowed. "Your system. Everything you built. We restored what we could, but it never worked the same. It's yours. You can take it, or delete it." I picked it up, feeling its weight between my fingers. 2 years of my life. Late nights. Precision. Care. Something I had created to make things better. That had been turned into a point of control against me. I set it back down slowly. In that moment, looking at both of them, something became clear in a way it never had before. Revenge didn't always look like destruction. Sometimes it looked like standing in a position where you no longer needed it, where the consequences had already unfolded without you lifting a hand. I closed the folder calmly. "I'll review everything I said, and I'll get back to you." Because this wasn't about what they were offering. It was about what I was willing to accept. I didn't win by destroying them. I won by refusing to become like them. What I learned is simple but not easy. Your value doesn't decrease just because someone fails to see it, and the moment you stop chasing validation is the moment you take your power back. I could have gone back, taken the money, and fixed their problems, but I chose to build something that aligned with who I am, not what they expected me to be. That choice changed everything. If you were in my position, would you walk away or stay and prove your worth? There's no perfect answer, only the one you can live with. And if this story made you pause, think, or see things differently, then you're already part of something meaningful here. Your support, whether it's a subscribe, a like, or sharing this video, can help this message reach someone who needs it at the right moment. Sometimes a single story can shift someone's direction. Maybe today that someone is because of you,